the back, the VOD and the silver screen. Kevin and Tom and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 798, Hitmans.
Yeah. It's,
Glen
What
the
has to-
Hitman Powell.
We were
is this the Bret Hart biopic?
I'd watch that all day.
we have no doubt. Like no one was like, I wonder if Joe would be interested in such a thing. So,
Now, is that a
Wrestling was-
record for quickest ding ding? I mean,
well, no, because we did an episode about Iron Claw.
That's true. Yeah, it was. I mean, Iron
So-
Claw was
so
immediate.
just by mentioning,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So that was instantly
But does
a
that
ding
count though? Because it's like that's the
Counts.
subject. He gives a reference. Okay.
ding. Counts. Yeah. So we were talking before we started recording that this is two words, hit man. So if you want to kill someone in your life, you need to Google hit man, one word. That's a
One
compound word.
Correct.
If you're looking for the film, it's two words, hit man. So
Yes.
just be sure in case a loved one in your life is ever murdered, then you want to avoid being a suspect.
Yes.
Yes.
Unless you did it, in which case you should be a suspect. 'cause
Also,
you're a
yes.
murderer, and you should go to jail. That's our official position
Yeah.
here
Real Spoilers
at Real
PSA.
Spoilers, is that if you murder someone, you should go to jail. I know it's a hot take, but we're not afraid
No.
to take the tough stands
That's right.
on the issues of the day.
That's right.
So before we get too far afield, let's go around and the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. I should say that we are recording two episodes back to back, even though Joe changed clothes to try to trick you.
Yeah.
And then remembered
and
that
then I
we did not
realized
bring a
that the
change
other
of
two were
clothes.
going to be wearing the same clothes. It's like, well, this was useless.
I mean, I guess I could change clothes because I live here.
That's
but,
true.
And I could borrow a shirt.
Yeah.
Your old shirts.
Yeah, I don't know if my shirts would fit you now. I am so
Yeah,
small.
Tom rocks a schmedium now. I don't know if you knew that.
No,
That's
I went from XL to large.
Yeah, see, I'm XL. I'd have to
Although
wear your old
I do
ones.
have some shirts now where I'm like, I think I can maybe get away with a medium. It's like
Ooh.
depends on the shirt.
Now
Depends on the
That's
shirt.
true. True classic.
That's a
I gotta
size
tell
I
you,
haven't
True
heard in a
classic
long
is where it's
time.
at.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
because
True
you got a
Classic
vasectomy.
That's
So I am going on vacation, so I'm going to be out for like 11 days. We're leaving on the 12th and coming back on the 24th.
now is this third time's a charm?
Yes. So
Yeah,
we're
no
attempting-
kidding. Good Lord.
We're attempting to go to Hawaii. So we were supposed to go to Hawaii. This is first world problems, but we were supposed to go to Hawaii in 2020. But then, of course,
What happened in 2020?
Bad Boys for Life was the highest grossing film of the year, and then the whole world collapsed. And we were going to go in 2022. We rebooked it. And the day before we left, my wife got COVID.
Yeah.
So luckily we had
I've
bought
been there.
we had bought the insurance. So
good call.
we got our money back, or the bulk of it. And so now we're doing it again. But we booked a totally different type of Hawaii trip. So we're doing 3 days in Oahu, and then we're getting a cruise ship, and it goes to like various islands
That's
for 7
cool.
days.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
You've been trying to go to Hawaii so long that each time you're planning your visit, you're going to see a different Jurassic Park sequel filming location.
I've been trying to go to Hawaii so long that originally I was going to go with the Brady's. That's
and then it was Saved by the Bell.
and then we were going to meet Vincent Price and
I was
Kinda
trying to think of a
Tiki.
Richard Linklater joke, but I couldn't
Yeah.
come up with it. Because he directed Aloha, right?
Did he?
no.
Who was that?
That wasn't Linklater. No, it was,
I thought it was the Cameron Crowe.
Oh, it was Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe, yes.
Okay.
yes.
Well, then good. I'm
Yeah.
glad I didn't make it.
Yeah. Well, but you kind of did.
Yeah, I know. Don't.
I'm sure Kevin will take all of this out.
Oh,
of
yes.
post.
yes.
It's all be gone. This will be a deleted scene
Yeah,
for
right,
our
right,
Patreon
right.
Oh, yeah.
subscribers. So anyway, so I will be out for 2 weeks. So we're recording 2 episodes back to back. So you will not miss a week, and then theoretically the next week, if all things time out right, I will record that week's episode during a layover in Phoenix.
Yeah,
man,
he's gonna
that's
do
wild.
it live from
Wild.
the lounge.
Yeah,
I'll do it live.
Yeah.
So anyway, before we dig into Hitman, shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, wherever you find a podcast. You can find us while you're
Spreaker.
there. Sure. While you're there, be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/realspoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. It's called the League of Show Sharers. There are no League of Show Sharers to read this week because for us it hasn't been a week. It's been
right.
10 minutes.
But we hope that you shared this.
Yes,
and
so-
we love you very much.
Yeah, so hopefully you will still share even though you know that
We
we
didn't
cannot
read it.
read it.
I
So
think they share before they listen, so they
I
probably
think they
won't
do
take
too,
the
yeah.
share away.
that's true.
Please don't go
But-
back and
hope
take
not.
the share away.
But if we burn them too many times,
Yeah.
then they'll stop sharing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course we have a Patreon at patreon.com/realspoilers, where for $5 a month you get tons of bonus content, and we like you extra. And finally, don't forget you can watch all of these over on YouTube at youtube.com/@realspoilers. Got it right.
Good
this time.
job.
Good job. Good job.
So, did we ever hit 500 over there?
Yeah, we just hit 500.
Hey, cool. I'll go unsubscribe.
Look at us. We did it.
No, do not everyone unsubscribe or we'll really screw us over.
So anyway, there's all that. Let's
before we get started, I do want to say the horror community and the
horror community.
lost someone this past week. If you've ever listened to the Kingcast, Scott Wampler, who was a co-host of that show, which is an insanely good podcast, basically talking to celebrities or different people in the horror world about Stephen King and about just random things that they talk about on that show. It's an amazing podcast. He also wrote for Fangoria. He was a great follow on Twitter. He unfortunately lost his life this past week.
He ran the site Birth Movies Death, right?
Which is great. It was a fantastic site. I don't know. I feel like he may have worked for Ain't It Cool News. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know about that, but his site shut down a couple of years ago. But he had a lot of writing on that.
He's
and,
an insanely talented writer. He was very funny. So I just want to say, like, sending much love to all of his family and friends, everybody at the Kingcast. I'm sure that's his co-host.
Eric Vespi.
Eric Vespi. They're really good friends, so I'm sure he's getting hit pretty hard. So if you have
did
a chance,
really nice dedication before Bad Boys. I'm surprised you didn't mention this in the last episode.
I meant to, and then I forgot. It was a really wonderful, a little shout out.
They
to
took
Scott
his
Wampler.
top 10 list about Michael Bay movies from Birth Movies Death, and they turned it into a video narrated in a very funny fashion by this character that was like this high octane Monster Energy skull that was just like number 9, explosions.
Monster
Bayhem. His name was called
Bayhem.
Bayhem.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, at the end of the video, it showed that it was written by Scott Wampler, and it said Scott Wampler forever. It was a really nice dedication to him.
Go find some of his writing and listen to the Kingcast when he was on.
He's
there,
still got like 4 or 5 episodes in the can with him on it.
So I cannot recommend that. So I'd go do that. And it's a bummer we lost Scott. He was a hell of a follow and one very creative dude.
Well, I guess let's dig into the movie du jour, Hitman.
I know in the last episode I said that I watched Dazed and Confused with my 13-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't know. Richard
this guy
Linklater-
was in a Linklater movie, right?
Glen Powell was?
Yeah.
This character
Everybody
or Glen
wants
Powell?
some, which is everybody wants some. Glen
that's-
Powell,
I
before
gotta
you
tell
knew
you-
who Glen Powell was a really charismatic dude where you're like, oh, who's this guy in that movie?
That movie is kind of underrated. I like that movie a lot.
Oh, I don't think a lot of people saw it, but the people that did loved it.
It's got
It was
Superman
kind
in
of under the radar. Yeah.
It's got the guy that was Superman on Lois and Superman. But yeah, I don't know. He's just an interesting filmmaker in that he doesn't put out a lot. And I don't know how I feel about this movie.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
Kind of the same way.
Yeah.
I thought this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this movie.
There were parts of it I like. I think the problem that I ultimately have with this movie, even though there were aspects that I liked, is I feel like it's a dark comedy, but they filmed it like it was a rom-com, and that was very like, I think if they had if this was to me more akin to something like To Die For, the Nicole Kidman movie from
man,
a million
that's
years
a
ago.
great call.
And
that's a great call.
And so, like, especially with the turn it takes at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I wish it had been more of a dark comedy throughout, as opposed to, like, they kind of wrote themselves in a corner, and then we're like, yeah, screw it, we'll have them do bad things and get away with it, right? And I'm like, I kind of dig that, but that wasn't the vibe of the movie up until then, and so it was kind of that juxtaposition didn't work for me. And maybe that's purposeful. Maybe they were like, no, that's the whole point.
Like, I didn't see that coming, and so I like that twist.
Yeah.
Especially after getting to know the character. And I will say, to me, and everyone's different, but I liked that it was filmed like a rom-com, yet there was this hitman aspect going on. I actually liked that the movie was a rom-com,
sort of hitman aspect,
dark comedy. Yeah, and it's such a unique story, and it's based on a real person that actually did this kind of thing, and so I thought that was funny. And what I also liked was, this is a movie that the comedy could feel. Okay, think of Master of Disguise with Dana Carvey.
Sure.
He's putting on different outfits, and it's goofy and comes off so silly. Even though, like, they could have turned this movie into the guy being a artistic director for community theater, right? And like, oh, I failed at doing all these roles, but now I can use my acting talents and be all silly. And I like that they made him more of a philosopher and a psychology expert. So he was looking at these things and trying to understand the humanity and find the right hitman for the person because of the psychology. To me, that comedy was a lot better, and actually I could still feel the stakes and felt the danger that they were in with all the crime and like the killings going on, that happened throughout the movie. To me, it upped the ante and made it interesting, rather than if you just make this goofy guy, or like Mike Myers in costumes. Like, this could have gone very silly.
It could have gone very, very silly.
I appreciate that the humor was more. It was interesting why he was doing it, and I think Glen Powell is very charismatic. The guy is so likable.
We talk about. I'm glad you brought that up, because I agree with you. We talk about how there are roles that automatically make someone a star, right? Will Smith in Independence Day, Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy,
Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours.
Absolutely. Glen Powell he hasn't had a role that has like skyrocketed him to a movie star, but he has been doing consistent, like, top tier stuff where you're like, oh, like, this guy's really good. And I keep, like, the one with Sydney Sweeney.
Well, that's
Top
the thing.
Gun.
That was, if there was one, I mean, he's a side character in Top Gun, very likable, very handsome, charismatic dude, but he's a side character. But that Anyone But You,
I think, is where people really noticed him,
zeroed in on him,
and left the movie remembering his name.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, because this guy was in Spy Kids. Like, he's been around for a long time.
Sure.
Right? But
it's funny. He did an interview where he said, I auditioned for Captain America and I screwed it up.
You could see
and
that.
It would,
right?
I'd be like, how did you screw it up? How did that happen? Because when you look at him, you're like, oh, I could absolutely see
you
being
sense.
Captain. If they didn't, they just announced that they're going to start casting for the Green Lantern show. And they said that Hal Jordan is going to be in his mid to late 40s. And I was like, damn it.
Because they want Nathan Fillion to do it.
Well, they can't have Nathan Fillion. He's Guy Gardner. He's Guy Gardner in Superman.
Gotcha.
But I was like, man, Glen Powell is, as much as Ryan Reynolds was Hal Jordan, like, Glen Powell could absolutely pull off Green Lantern 100%.
He would be a great Hal Jordan.
Yes.
He's got that cockiness. You see it in Top Gun. He's got the cocky pilot. He's already got it, right?
Yeah.
So,
everything that Ryan Reynolds had, I think Glen Powell has. But
except for Blake Lively. Can't have that.
That's true. You mean Lady Deadpool? But we'll see. I don't know. This one, I was like, oh, like, not only does he have that, like, instant charisma on screen, but the dude can also act.
He transformed into all those characters, like, doing his thing. I'm like,
we kind
man,
it's funny. We kind of bag on. Well, Tom bags on Split, right?
Oh
yeah. I hated that movie.
Yeah, I did. Okay, but I mean, James McAvoy does the same thing. in that movie that Glen Powell is doing here. But there's just another, like, I don't disagree with Tom. I don't hate that movie, but it is like, okay, it's a little whatever.
I think some of it is here. One, like, it's not supposed to be real.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're saying this guy in Split actually has these personalities. Two, when we see those personalities, we live with them a lot longer, where most of these other characters he plays, you see for less than 50 seconds.
Right. Which is fun.
And it's a comedy, right? It's fun.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I was going through Richard Linklater's IMDb. There are movies in there that I didn't even realize that he directed.
Really?
Like, there was a few where I was like, he did that.
You seen Boyhood?
We did Boyhood, I think.
Did we cover that?
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, Kevin, you were on that episode. I'm sure you were.
2014. 2014. Yeah, it was just barely.
School of Rock, I didn't know was
School of
him.
Rock.
School of Rock was,
he did the Bad News Bears remake.
That was the one where I was like, man, that's why A Scanner Darkly, which doesn't seem like a Linklater film at all.
Do you know he did Slacker?
I did know he did Slacker.
Have you ever heard Kevin Smith talk about it?
I have heard. And you know, it's funny. I had never seen that. And then, you know, he had, you know, Kevin Smith had talked about it, and I was like, all right, I'll go back and watch it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's exact like Clerks is Slacker. Like
it's the movie.
It's filmed the same. Everything is almost exactly.
He
the
saw
same
Slacker, and he was like, "Oh, well,
I can do that."
I can do that.
It is literally the movie that inspired Kevin Smith to be a filmmaker,
100%.
and that he could do it. Yeah.
But like Scanner Darkly is the one that stands out, where I was like, man, that is a wildly different movie than.
Yeah,
but he reminds me a lot of like Richard Donner or Howard Hawks, where there isn't. You couldn't point to anything on that list and be like, "Oh, that's a Linklater film."
Yeah, he's not just the guy that does whatever. I mean, think about the Before Sunrise, the trilogy he did with those three movies. I mean, you know, he's been able to live in a lot of different genres, but he's also not just a craftsman like Ron Howard, right? Like, he's not just making solid movies that don't have any voice. Like, he does have a certain flair to his films, right? It's like, it's unique. It's not.
I think Dazed and Confused is a cultural touchstone. I mean, I saw that when I was, I don't know, 13, and I still reference that movie. That movie gets referenced not even just by me, but like Matthew McConaughey's lines in that movie are referenced today. You know,
all right.
Yeah, but and not just by him. Like, people, you know, that character also super creepy. Going back and rewatch that movie, like that is a problematic
I keep
character.
Getting older, and the girls all stay the same age.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's definitely a problem. But you know, I think that's also a commentary though on talking about the 70s. Not saying it's right, but I mean, things used to be a lot different, and it's weird to go back. Now we're talking about 50 years back, where when that movie was released, it was 20 years back. It especially everything is so far removed
and just
from that.
The people that were in that movie. Right?
Oh,
like,
yeah, it was Ben
Affleck and Cole Hauser and Mila Jovovich and Joey Lauren Adams.
And isn't
Cole
it the guy
Hauser's the guy from Yellowstone.
Okay, what about the guy from Mallrats though? Is it him or Jeremy London, or is it the brother?
I think it's the brother.
One of the? It's the brother. Okay, because speaking of
Jeremy and Jason London are the two.
I mix them up sometimes.
But okay, go back and watch Mallrats. It's almost the exact same cast. Mallrats almost has the exact same cast as Dazed and Confused, which again, to the Linklater, you know, connection. So yeah, I didn't see anything about this. I didn't know anything about this. I knew that it existed and it was on Netflix.
Yeah, this is Jason London. It's the guy. He was in was it Party of Five? He was in one of those.
Yes.
He was the TV show guy.
The Dazed and Confused is?
Yeah, it was Jason London.
Okay,
brother.
One of them is Off the Deep End.
Oh, I think that's
currently.
Jeremy London.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe part of why Mallrats 2 is having a little trouble.
Oh, okay.
Since he's the main character. I'll have to look it up and I'll correct it if not. But
TS,
I think that
man.
is.
Get it together, TS.
That's my favorite Kevin Smith movie, so I would
Mallrats
love.
Have you ever seen the other cut of that?
Oh, I don't.
There's another
know.
cut.
I'm not
It's
sure.
not good.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I just
not good.
I love Mallrats, and the Mallrats 2 Die Hard at a Mall. He's been trying to get it made for 15 years. I wish they would make this movie. It's Universal owns the rights to it, unfortunately, and Kevin Smith is just like, just let me do it. Like they're never ever going to do anything with
Right,
it.
like,
but they won't give him the rights to make the sequel. That's the problem. Is
That's weird.
They like had an in, and someone was going to like, yeah, we'll let you, and then it never came to be. I don't know. It's a bummer.
It is a bummer. So I saw the way I initially thought this. I thought he was like a hitman.
Yeah.
That also.
Yeah, that's what I thought we were getting into as well. Yeah.
And
I never saw a trailer,
all.
didn't know anything about this movie, and yeah, I thought he was a hitman playing different characters or
Well,
whatever.
I thought he was like, he was this teacher by day, but
Right.
then he's this hitman on the side.
Yeah.
So we find out that Glen Powell is kind of this I'm not going to antisocial.
He's an intellectual. He's an intellectual,
He's very quirky. How about that?
but he's not a social guy.
I
He is
feel
not
like
a social guy.
I wonder if in the real life guy was on the spectrum.
When you look at like the pictures at the end and like everything he was involved in, 100% agree with you.
Yeah. Like I think he was on the spectrum, and that's why he was so smart. And it also, like, he didn't have much of his own personality, but he could adopt these personality because he was always like watching.
He could
people.
hone into.
Well, they even kind of
exactly,
talk about that, where he says that he was just studying people.
Right.
Right, like that's why he got so good at this part, because he just liked watching people.
I just think this is such a unique story. Again, like, I thought this was just another like a wacky hitman story, and he's dressing up to try to infiltrate different things. Like the fact that this is a teacher or a professor that is also doing a side gig because he's got nothing else to do, make some extra money.
Right.
And he's very intelligent. He builds these small cameras and audio devices, and he's usually just in charge of planting the devices. But what happens is there's a cop that gets caught on camera beating up some kids. And
teenagers.
so now his face is everywhere.
The line that I like from him is when he's getting like, kicked off when he's facing a 120-day suspension. He's like, 120 days with pay, lame. And I was like, hey, man, that sounds all right. I don't know what you're talking about. But
I
he was
thought
like,
that was funny that like that's punishment.
Yeah,
for police.
right.
I also thought it was interesting, especially I have just talked about Bad Boys and its evolution of police treatment on film, right? That this is a guy that 10 years ago would have been the hero of the film,
Right.
Like,
For sure.
he's the
Doing
cop.
what it takes.
I do what it takes. I'm not by the book. I just catch bad guys. And now
Right,
it's like,
right.
no, you're a racist prick who's abusing your power. I mean, we're
beating
still
up
gonna
teenagers.
we're still gonna let you be a cop, but we're
Right,
gonna
right.
feel conflicted.
But we're not going to like it.
But we're gonna feel conflicted about it.
But
right?
that's to Linklater's credit. Like, he's writing about a more modern take on the cops,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
This guy also is the actor's name is Austin Amelio, who plays the bad cop. I thought he's really good. I had never seen him in anything. I thought it was who's the guy that would not Marty McFly for a second? I thought it was
Stoltz?
Eric. I thought it was Eric Stoltz for a second. I don't know why, just under a beard.
Oh
and stuff.
man! So fun fact: I was watching. I told Bella, I was like, this. We were watching something from The Office, and Jan popped up, and I was like, she was supposed to be Jennifer in Back to the Future. She was originally cast as Jennifer,
Oh, okay.
and she was like, "Well, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, Michael J. Fox wasn't Marty McFly." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "There's another actor, and he was doing this whole thing." I showed her the clips of Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly. She's like, "That's so weird," and I was like, "That's why they fired
That's
him
why-
because it was so weird."
he was making a different move.
He was but she could not figure out that Jan from The Office was originally Jennifer, and then
It's
when
interesting
Eric
that they
Stoltz
recast both those actors.
they recast Jennifer twice.
Yeah.
Because it's Elizabeth Shue in 2 and 3. Like, it's not even the same
Oh
Jennifer.
no! But for the original though, it's just interesting
Right,
that
right,
both.
right.
I mean, the two leads of the movie completely.
I just
changed.
wonder. Well, this is totally off topic, but I do wonder if like there had been some sort of chemistry that was created
yeah, for
between
sure.
Eric Stoltz and whatever that gal's name is. And they
Right,
were just like,
for
"We
sure.
gotta we
It just
gotta
didn't work once Michael
the
J.
whole
Fox
thing."
came in there. Yeah.
But yeah, she was like,
Um,
"This is strange." I was like, "It is weird."
But I thought this guy Austin Amelio was great as the bad cop. I really liked him.
I thought he was. There's a guy who's like a Rob Zombie regular. He's in all of the Rob Zombie movies. That's who I thought this guy was.
This guy
At the
was in
same-
Everybody Wants Some too.
Well, there we go.
Linklater's got his little troop. you
He
know?
does have a little crew. Some of that crew he may not be able to get back, but I don't think he's getting Affleck for a Netflix movie.
Well,
so
now
It's not like Affleck's never made a Netflix movie.
that's true. That's true. That's a good point, man. That'd be wild if they. That you know what? That would be a fun movie. Is like
And
Dazed and Confused again.
I will also say that
Dazed and Confused babies.
the animated adventures of Dazed and Confused. I will also say Affleck seems to have a lot of respect for people that launched his career. Like
Keeps coming back. Yeah.
He's come back for Kevin Smith stuff, and I think if Linklater asked him and the schedules worked out, I think he would. I think
he
Affleck's
probably
a good
there was
dude.
there definitely was
I think
there
so,
was
too.
even strife between him and Kevin Smith. Like they were not on speaking terms for a long time, and then he came back and did a few things, I think. So Glen Powell is this like philosophy teacher. Like Kevin said, he's doing the side work for the police department where he's helping them set up people who want
They're
to
in New
hire
Orleans to set the scene.
Is that where they are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It never plays a huge part of, I don't think, in like the culture.
Except for the
but-
music.
Yeah.
I think the music is very New
Yeah,
Orleans.
fair
that makes
enough.
sense.
So in this process, like we said, the cop who is usually the one who is playing the hitman gets in trouble for beating up teenagers, which is kind of all they say. But I do like.
But
that
now
he's-
everyone knows his face from the news story, so he can't be an
Correct.
undercover hitman because everyone
Right.
would notice him.
I
So.
also like the line where he's like, there's like a pretty good portion of people that agreed with what I did.
Right, I know,
And
right?
it's
The
like-
if you look in the
If
comments,
you read
it's
the comments,
2-1.
2-1 in the comments.
2-1. That's a great line.
Which
That's
is,
a great line.
which is another great part about like to look at today's culture and look at the loudest people on the internet. Like, yeah, the people that are perpetually online are gonna be the ones that are loudest and saying like, "Oh yeah, good for him" or whatever. But it's like most people in the real world aren't even online to make
Correct.
comments like that, right?
Yeah,
So
the
it's
comments
just-
are look at our Priscilla episode for the people
yeah,
who are
exactly.
online.
Like that's not the majority. That's the people that are online looking for stuff.
The
to
other, I
complain
was
about.
listening to a different podcast, a very
Oh.
big podcast, and they mentioned the Priscilla thing about a certain king of rock and roll, maybe
Okay.
being not
We won't
maybe
name
being
him.
maybe, yeah, we won't name names. And I was like, oh man, they're gonna come after you. They were talking
Oh,
about
yeah.
they were talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren because
Oh,
Ed
boy.
Warren is a scumbag and had a 14-year-old living in his apartment. They built an apartment on top of. Won't see that in any of the Conjuring movies. But they were talking, and then they brought up Elvis.
You
I
will
was like,
see
"Don't
it
do
in the Conjuring porn parodies, though.
Maybe not. Maybe I don't know.
Hopefully not.
Well, they'll make her
Yeah.
18.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, I was like, don't say the Elvis word. No, I said it. Now they're gonna come after us again.
Now, yeah. So they're like, Gary, you're up, and Gary is in the van. Like, oh, what? I mean, he's never been in the field. He's not a police officer. He's just the guy that makes their little gadgets for them.
Right.
But he knows enough, and he's listened to enough footage to where they say you can do it. Just go in there, and
So this
you know
is the
drill.
point where I was like, oh, he's a real hitman, because he sits down with this guy and just flips and goes into this character that is like this badass, hitman
because
that
he's
knows
a
what he's doing.
psychology major.
Correct.
That's what I think is so interesting about the film is that you can explain it much like on the last episode when you're saying a certain character, like it's surprising but it makes sense. I
Yeah.
like how they made him someone that studies people, studies the human brain, psychology, philosophy, why people do what they do, and this guy has been so into his studies that he's learned these things he can use in the field, and he just flips a switch and becomes these characters.
I do like the gal from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
She's just like, where did that come from? And he's
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
I like
kinda
the
figured it
commentary
out.
with both her and the other guy in the van. I think it's really
Yeah.
funny with them. That's why I enjoyed this movie, because it is like a lighthearted. It is more of a comedy than a serious film. Now there is some tension, there are some stakes at play here, but at the end of the day, like I feel like it's just it's a good date movie. type of
Absolutely
film,
a very
you know?
good date movie. I would give you
Yeah.
that.
But he goes in there and gets the guy to confess. He plays the part perfectly, and they're like, "Oh wow, Gary's got it. Like he can do this."
I love
Yeah,
that
when
he-
you're trying to catch people on a hitman thing, having watched a lot of Datelines, like you you have to get them to say certain things.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you can't, it can't be coded and dance around it the way people want to do. Like you need them to say certain things, because if not, when they go to trial, they'll be like, "Oh, that's not what I meant at all."
Yeah.
Yeah,
take
that's all
care
I
of him.
said.
I
I
meant
didn't say
like
that.
he has health issues,
Yeah.
and you need to assist him.
So that's why having someone that's into psychology
Right.
knows how to pull that out of them, and that's what's cool. Is each character from here on, Gary.
Because if you try too hard, then they're like, oh, I know what
entrapment or
you're
whatever.
doing.
Yeah,
or they
right,
figure
right,
you out.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So I like that. So from here on out, he's their guy. They keep sending Gary into these things, and Gary does research on social media, which makes sense these days. Everyone puts their stuff on social media. You see him researching, and he caters his hitman to each of their personalities so that he can pull out exactly what they want. He pretends to be the person they'd feel comfortable spilling
Right.
this to, right?
Correct,
And so that's
correct.
what's really funny is you see on the poster, and if you've seen the trailers, all these different disguises, so to speak, that he goes into are the hitmen specifically for the mark.
Right. And we get a pretty good montage of him working each client, working each, well, I guess perp, I guess would be the more appropriate word. Until he comes across this woman who is, her name is Madison. And every person he's dealt with up until, I guess we should get it.
Adria Arjona is the
Yeah,
actor's
like,
name.
where do I know her from?
You know her from
Oh, you
Good
know what? She was on
Omens?
Andor.
Andor. There you go.
Yeah, she played Bix on Andor.
Okay.
But I thought there was something else that I had seen that we had. Oh,
She was in Good
she was
Omens?
she was in Morbius.
She was in Okay.
She's
Was
the
she like
girl
the,
in.
the doctor,
she's the woman in
friend, the
Morbius.
researcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Man,
we won't talk about that.
Yeah, the
That's
last-
a movie that, man, had its 15 seconds and just disappeared into the ether.
this
Like,
the
remember
Sony-
Morbius
this-
was people were
Yeah.
clowning on it.
again.
But now
That's
have you
another.
heard?
I'm
That's
sure
another
in,
Spider-Man character you could make without
Yeah.
needing Spider-Man.
I'm sure
but
in
they
2
screwed it up.
years Netflix will get the rights, and all of a sudden it'll be #1 on Netflix for 2 months.
I think it
it
already
was.
did
I think
that,
that happened.
actually,
I think
yeah.
that happened. Yeah.
But like it had its time, and then everyone's goofing on it. Oh, I gotta watch this, much like Madam Web, and then it just disappears. Like Madam Web was the #1 movie on Netflix when they got it, right? So terrible movie, bombs at the box office, #1 on Netflix, right?
Well, I
The-
think it's because like you've already paid for Netflix. You've heard so
Yeah.
much about this movie. You're like, I might as well let it play and see what it is.
It's just
See
hilarious. Like
what-
when people talk, this movie that we're talking about, #1 on Netflix, the power of Netflix. Like I know that people hate things going straight to streaming. I get it. But if you look at what old movies do or failed movies do when they go to Netflix,
Yeah.
and so it's the same.
Well,
with new
not even
movies.
failed movies that maybe flew under the radar. And,
That
you
too.
know,
Right, either way,
Netflix,
right.
Netflix to me is it's Blockbuster now, where you walk down the aisles of a Blockbuster and a movie that didn't do well in theaters. Anchorman is a prime example where it bombs in theaters, but it finds a second life on VHS. Difference is these movies that are maybe finding a second life that were bombs in theaters aren't getting the bump in pay. Right? Like you go, Anchorman made all of its money on rentals and, home video sales. That's
Right.
not a thing anymore. That doesn't, that market does not exist. And I think, and obviously I don't know what the parameters or the terms that were come to in that Actors and Writers Guild strike, but you have to believe that there may, depending on how many times something is streamed, would
would hope.
generate some sort of revenue for the movie itself or the actors or the writers or directors or whatever. But that's what I'm saying is I think that this second life on Netflix means nothing anymore.
What do you mean?
Financially, it might not mean as much for the actors as
as it used to.
as a movie that takes on steam.
But you know what though? But
VHS.
what it does do, what my point with movies that have failed financially that get this second life on Netflix, it's getting them seen, right? So if you
That's
have a
true.
hit movie on Netflix, even if you're not making as much for every play or stream or whatever, though, if you have the #1 movie, that gets a lot more eyes. It brings your IMDb star meter up. So
Right.
there is a benefit.
I do wonder, and Kevin and I were talking about this the other day off air, as I wonder if you will start to see movies that underperform at the box office still get sequels because they're in desperate need
Yeah.
of new IPs. And if a movie underperforms but develops a following on streaming,
Right.
then now its value, maybe they will go to the theater. Like we were talking about this in the wake of Fall Guy because that was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
And there's no reason that shouldn't result in a franchise of some sort. And so, we were talking. I was like, I wonder if this movie hits VOD, it hits Netflix or whatever streaming property it goes to, and if it takes on a life, and people are like, oh man, it's a shame I didn't see that in theater. That was actually really good. Will that be enough to get a Fall Guy
interesting.
2. You know?
Yeah, I wonder. But yeah, so this movie debuts at number 1, right? So I think that's why they're putting so much value in, like, you want things to go to the theater. Like, you, in a perfect world, you would love that, and box office and keeping theaters afloat and everything. But look at the power that Netflix has. And Netflix is going to, if they're going to give you a big chunk of money to buy your movie, and you know that it's going to be the number 1 movie and hundreds of millions will see it. So I don't know, it's just a very confusing.
Look at Monkey Man. I mean, Monkey Man was supposed to go to Netflix. Like, that was supposed to go straight to Netflix, and luckily Jordan Peele stepped in and stopped that from happening.
That's the way that you wish more would go. Is
Yeah,
like, put
right,
it in theaters. Like, what, you're going to be on Netflix in a month, right? Like, why do they
You'll
not?
still be there. It'll be okay.
I think Netflix, the only thing is Netflix wants to make you, your subscription's now $22.99 a month. They want to give you the value. And if you're like, well, I'm just getting movies that were in theaters, like, they want to say.
See, I don't know that I agree with that mentality. Like, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that I think Netflix might be wrong. Like, I think they want the perception of, we're giving you stuff that you can't get in theaters.
Yes.
But I feel like if all of a sudden Netflix has all these theatrical movies that are now on Netflix,
And they have their own theaters.
I feel, and that's just for awards purposes.
Right.
But I would think that, like, if Hitman played in theaters for 4 weeks and then popped up on Netflix, I feel like, from my vantage point, its value would be perceptually higher.
It's Anyone But You, right?
That's a theatrical release.
Anyone But You did huge, and then it went to Netflix.
Right.
And I agree.
Right.
I'm all for it. Everything should go to the theaters, and if
Not everything.
well,
Morbius should not have gone to theaters.
oh sure it should. It's still a big production.
I don't know that, like, what was it? Kissing Booth should have gone to theaters. I think that's fine on Netflix.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
but
there's certainly some things.
But you know what I mean. If a movie is intended for theatrical or created in a way to where if you sell it to Netflix, it goes to Netflix. But if you sold it to Sony or what, you know what I mean, it's going to go to theaters. Like, give it a theatrical run, and with digital distribution and theaters hurting and needing stuff in there, play it on a screen for 4 weeks, build up some of that word of mouth, give them the chance to get people into the theater, and then you drop it on Netflix. Like, it's going to make it there eventually. I don't get why not make the money while you can, but anyway. But back to this one. So he meets Madison, who is played
Madison,
by
and
Adria Arjona, and I thought she was really good. She's been in, you said she was in Andor.
Yeah, she was in Andor. She was in, I'm looking at her thing now, Father of the Bride. True Detective. I don't remember her.
Oh.
In 2015, so that would have been season 2?
Okay.
Maybe. I got to tell you, new season True Detective, very good.
Yeah, I got to
Highly
watch it
recommend
still.
Have you watched any of them?
I watched them all but the new one.
Oh, okay. All right. We don't really count 2. We'll skip over season 2.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, she is going to hire a hitman to kill her husband. It sounds like he's very abusive, and she doesn't really want to deal with his anymore, and she doesn't really see any other option but this. And
he can tell she's clearly in a bad situation. She is not like the other ones who are just this blind rage or jealousy or whatever. I mean, she's in a bad situation.
She's in danger.
Yes.
She's in danger.
This is a form of self-defense.
Yes.
Correct. This is feels like her last option. And Glen Powell kind of talks her out. He talks her out of it.
He steers her in the right direction.
Right. And he says, like, go take this money, start a new life, do whatever, blah, blah. And I do like the other two, I guess they're cops, are like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? He's like, like, she just wasn't the typical person that we run into. I'm like, we'll never see her again. It's whatever.
He also uses psychology background to say the right words to where they don't fire him after that. They don't go, you did something illegal. His words told her what to do, but they also didn't implicate him in.
Yeah, he threads this needle where like it doesn't look like he let her off the hook to the people listening in the van. Like she just decided to bail, but he was definitely like stringing her, taking
pushing
her down
in the
that
right
path.
direction.
Yeah. And apparently that part is true.
Yeah.
Like the real life Gary Johnson, there was one person that he met that he was just like, I'm not going to let this person go to jail. And like kind of talk them out of it. And then they did not become romantically involved. That was the jumping off point, though, was that there was one case where he was just like,
He told her to go to social services and
Yeah.
and got help
One
in
of the
real
things
life.
that I did like about at the end of this movie where they show pictures of Gary Johnson, and it was like most of almost all of what has happened we talked about here is true except for the killing. Gary didn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like that little tag at the end, which I thought was very funny.
That's what I think makes it okay, right? Because we've talked about pain and gain and that stuff, but that's trying to like make a comedy out of real innocent people dying, which I don't like as much. This movie is all based, a lot of it's based in reality, and they do this little thing, but they're very clear about it, right?
And they like definitely like they weight the scale to where the people who are dying.
True.
You don't care. They're bad.
They're
people,
bad. They're bad people,
right?
Yeah.
Like it's a dirty cop. It's an abusive husband
that's
like
hiring a hitman. Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
So he meets
Gary
up with
goes
Madison.
about his life,
Yeah.
and he's doing. His personality does start to change throughout
He
the
becomes
movie,
a little
right?
cooler. I like it. He starts to kind of adopt the confidence. I mean, he's always been a smart, nice guy, but now
But he's rocking
playing these
like jean
characters-
shorts and a button up, which I thought was hilarious. I love the line where the guy's like, "Hey, these are kind of comfortable."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, they breathe really well."
I like it when he's like, "Hey, can I have my pants back?" And then the gal is like, "You guys are so weird." just funny little throwaway lines like that.
So and then he gets a text in the middle of the night from Madison to go to this like stray
adoption.
rescue puppy adoption thing, and he is there. He knows that he has to be Ron, who is this hitman character, but he also doesn't really let go of his other personality. So he's like playing with the puppies, or he's playing with these kids, and Madison's like, "This does not make any sense."
When he's
Like,
outside of his jobs, he still is this really nice and really smart guy.
Right.
And I like that about it. It's so funny as she's watching this hitman that she
Right,
believes
right.
that's his job, is killing people, and he's being so sweet, and it's that juxtaposition which is really entertaining to watch.
correct. So then their relationship progresses, and they basically
They say at her apartment, what they have there does not leave the apartment.
correct.
So it's
She's
just
like, "I'm
hooking
not
up.
gonna." Yeah, they're just hooking up.
And this movie's not afraid to be sexy, which is okay, right? Like,
Not afraid to be sexy.
and it's not gratuitous, and you don't really see full nudity, but they're getting it on, right? I mean, it's like it's not done in a gratuitous way, but it's like they're getting hot and heavy in different parts of the apartment, and like this movie's not afraid to do that. It's a real thing that exists. I think that movies have kind of gotten away from that, and I know they're trying to play
big
it really. They're trying to play it safe, right? But like, still, it's human nature. Like, it's okay to.
It is weird that has
show.
become like that, like showing sex or nudity on screen has
Right.
kind of gone away.
Right. It's like they went to we talk about extremes in any case, right?
Sure,
it's like
sure.
they went to the other side, and I get why they want to make sure everyone's safe and don't want to offend people, but like completely eliminating sex scenes in
It's
movies.
weird.
It's
weird.
It is weird. Yeah. So anyway, this movie's not afraid to do it. And again, I think that lends itself to that date night movie, right? You've got the comedy, the romance. It's a good movie.
It is a good movie. So now they're out and about and they're doing their thing, and they
go
have
to a
like
club.
they go to a club, and they're leaving the club, and this is where we get the ex.
The ex.
Well, we get
Yeah,
it's
well.
not the ex.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, we get the husband shows up.
Just because you're doing air quotes down here doesn't mean you're not using air quotes. Now you've got your hands turned up like,
Oh, my God.
I loved the comedy.
We did not talk about that on the last episode.
I know.
I forgot about that line.
We didn't
until
talk
you
about a
just
lot
said
of
that.
comedy moments, and I'm
But
telling
that
you,
is
Bad
good.
Boys, Ride or Die, which I want to
Yeah.
call For Life. A lot of funny moments. But
Yeah, just because you do air, turn your hands upside down, turn your
Yeah.
hands the other way. Yeah, so the husband shows up, and what I like about this is she is fairly confident most of this movie. She does not give off an air of sheepishness, I guess is kind of the only word. As soon as this guy shows up and raises her voice, she immediately like backpedals and starts like walking behind Glen Powell, which I do think is interesting because it's a very simple thing to show. Oh, this is like he's a bad dude.
Yeah,
Like
she's
he
in
hasn't
an
even raised
abusive
his voice
relationship.
yet, but she's already scared of him. And I do like that Glen Powell doesn't immediately go like aggro, right? Like he's trying to walk away. He's
Sure.
because he's not really this person.
right.
He's not this guy who will who is willing to fight kind of at the drop of it. He's not a hitman. And Glen Powell, to his credit, like he's trying to walk away, and finally when it gets to a point,
Gets physical.
I don't even think it gets physical.
Yeah,
as
the
much
guy
as,
like grabs her, and you don't know what.
Oh,
he's
you're
gonna
right.
do.
You're right.
As soon as he gets physical, and
pulls
he's
a gun.
playing this character, and pulls a gun on him.
And the guy's like, oh, and I do like that this guy is still trying to be like a hard ass while he's got a gun pointed to his head. It's like, okay, you your pants. We already know, which is the joke later.
And she's like, this guy doesn't back down from anyone. You made him.
He's a
do
professional.
That. Yeah, he's a professional. Professional what?
Professional
asshole.
what?
That's funny. That's Linklater. Linklater has written some very funny lines, and I love that he's able to inject that comedy into even these serious situations.
Yeah. So they go to grab some ice cream, and they're sitting down and they're talking, and we see the suspended cop is in the same
lieutenant.
place. Yeah, the bad lieutenant. Yeah. And he comes out, and they
Jasper.
Glen Powell knows that he is in trouble. Like, this is not good. Luckily,
but he plays it cool. Like, I like that this character Gary has built in the confidence to where he's playing these characters, and I like that there's an internal monologue you hear throughout the film, but you never see Gary being nervous or like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Like, he plays the character. He never gets out of character when he's in that mode, right? And he's smart, right? So he plays the psychology of both of them, and now he's like, well, I've got something on you because. Later on, he's like, well, so you knew who she was? You ran into her and didn't say anything to the police chief?
Right, right. So they play it off, and it goes off kind of without a hitch. And then...
Well, he's like, you're still married? You haven't divorced him? And she's like, And then she's like, so who is this coworker guy that we just coincidentally ran into? And she's like, so we're even now? Now, he's like, no.
And I'm trying to think. So they... Oh, and is it the... So the husband, they do another stakeout, and they're back to back. And
this is kind of the surprise, which I think if you've seen enough movies, you know what it's going to be. But after that interaction, they're like, okay, we got another one. We don't have a lot of time. We don't know anything about this guy. This just came up, and he's walking in the diner. And he's looking through the window, and he's like, hey, is that what? And it's the ex.
Yes, and they play it to where Glen Powell knows he can't go face to face.
Yeah,
so they sit back to they sit back to back.
It's for your protection. Look forward.
Yeah, right. And they start talking, and of course, he knows immediately who this guy is. And then we kind of find out that Madison isn't exactly honest about anything. She hasn't divorced him.
It's not really
bad,
like that, though, Joe. It's just that
no.
She's not officially divorced, right? It's not
correct. I think this goes to
but
romantic
you start
comedies,
to wonder. It like creates this motif of like, well, but what is really going on with her?
And especially when we get the reveal in the next scene after this.
But the ex says, hey, and this is a twofer, I want you to take out her boyfriend. And that really gets under his skin.
I love this scene. I think this scene is great because Glen Powell does this thing where he turns into like a bad guy. Yeah. And he turns around and he's like, this is, and then the husband turns around and realizes who he is. And then the husband's like, I just my pants, and like runs out of the thing.
He's like, I'll do it myself.
Right. And I was like, that was good. I like that.
What I like about the writing in this scene, so you could watch this movie and go, you blew it. You could have just put the ex-husband in jail. Like if you just let him do it, say, hand me the money and it's done. Right. But these are humans. These are people. No one's perfect. And he let his emotions get to him like
also,
a human being.
He really can't do that.
Nope.
Right. Because what's that trial going to look like? Well, you're the boyfriend that I thought I was trying to kill. Yeah. I confronted you outside of the bar.
It opens him up to trouble.
Right.
So it's
how do you know her? And then you're going to go down the rabbit hole of like, oh, she tried to hire you to kill me. Yeah. Like it gets so convoluted that I don't think a prosecutor would go after that.
So it's smart.
Not at all.
And this guy knows it. So I like that it's he kind of blows up, but also he knows that it would not be good for him. But then the guy says, I'll do it myself. So he's trying to warn Madison. He's like, this guy is going to hire someone or he's going to kill you.
Right. And she's, this is where their relationship kind of blows up because he's like, how do you know this? And he says, like, I'm not a real hitman. Like, I am.
No, that's the very end. So she gets a gun and he's like, what is that? And she's like, I got to protect myself. You said this guy is going to kill me.
But didn't
I mean, that's
then they go shooting together.
Yeah. But when he reveals it is the very end of the movie. Like, he doesn't reveal that to her until
because she basically uses him to teach
Train her
her
to-
how to kill and get away with it.
Sure.
He doesn't
Okay.
want to train her. He's like,
it's okay. You're right. You're
You're
totally
dangerous.
right.
You've got a gun. This is actually more dangerous now. And she's like, I've got to protect myself. This is what you do. And so he takes her out shooting and kind
You're
of
right.
trains her. And then fast
we go back to
forward.
he goes to the police. We find out that the husband is dead, and he has they think it's a drug deal gone bad, and he's been shot with a $38. And he was like, what the Glen Powell's like, what the hell is going on? And then he says, he's like, look, there was a life insurance policy that was taken out, like $1 million, blah blah blah. And
I love this.
do-
I love this. Is like kind of reminds me of something like After Hours, where like things keep getting worse and worse and
Yes.
worse and building
This
the
is
tension. You're like,
It's a simple, it's the romantic comedy trope, right? Where like, if you just come out and say what the deal is and you're honest, then none of this is really an issue. But because
but
he
if you
doesn't,
say but you lied to her, so if you say this,
right,
it's gonna
And
blow
he
up his
can't.
spot.
And normally that trope in a movie is like it's completely self-inflicted, right?
Right,
Where
right.
here he can't say the truth because to his workplace because he's committed a crime.
Right.
he's going to lose his relationship with this woman that he loves.
Yeah.
And he's going to lose this secondary gig and probably go to jail.
Well, yeah, because
Right.
now he's been lying to them. He's been seeing this person who was a suspect, let
Right.
her go, and now if they find out they've been sleeping together, but now, he's a suspect, right? Now the husband's dead, and you're dating the ex-wife or the soon-to-be ex-wife. It's a
Right.
mess, and I love that it just all turns to crap, and he has to now
This
figure
is-
out how to get out of this.
After Hours is a good. I was thinking Fargo, where it's
Yeah.
like just the
Yeah.
worst circumstances.
Sure.
A
and
simple
then,
plan.
Yeah,
simple
yeah.
plan, exactly.
Yeah.
So he goes to see Madison, and he was like, "So, how are you? Anything you'd like to tell me?" And she was like, "No." He's like, "Did they tell you about? Did you know?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, I knew." He's like, "When were you gonna tell me?" She's like, "I didn't know. I was kind of processing it." They go to embrace, and she was like, and it's kind of messed up that I had to kill him, and he was like, what? She's like, "Yeah, I killed him." And this is
And
the
I love this
reveal.
because he freaks out, and she goes, well, "You do this all the time." Like I love
I've
the
never
fact that
killed anybody.
she's not scared to tell this guy that she did it, right? Because he's a hitman.
It's like they have a shared hobby now.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
and so it's
right,
like no
right.
big deal, right? This is what you do, and I was protecting myself. And he flips out and he goes, "I've never even killed somebody." And then she's
Yeah, he's like,
"What?"
"I'm not a real hitman. I work for the police department." And she
Oh.
was like, "You lied to me the whole time."
Yeah.
And he was like, "I didn't want to." This is the big romantic comedy reveal.
But as far as romantic comedies go, and the thing that tears two people apart, this is
Right.
valid. This
Yes,
is a pretty valid.
This is a pretty
split.
valid. So they leave, and I think that the bad cop is on to him.
For
at
sure.
this point.
Yes. We find out that he's been since the frozen yogurt place. He's been kind of tailing them the whole time.
Yes, correct. And then we go back to the police station, and we get the revelation that she is the number one suspect. And so
And
they
Jasper
take,
convinces them, "Hey, he's the only one that already has a connection. Let's go right now, surprise her, get her to confess." So he
Yes,
has to
and
go in after this big fight. And
This is my favorite scene in the movie.
This
Yeah,
is a great scene.
it's
This
great.
is very good.
Yeah.
I also, what I like about this scene is that they are both mad at each other,
yeah.
but the way it ends, and I was like, okay, like that, like the little nod and the wink
Oh, especially
between the
because
two of them
yeah.
is pretty great.
Yeah.
So he goes in as Ron, and he has on his phone because
see him
they're listening
typing
to
on the way
everything.
there,
Yeah,
which is
and
great.
he's
He's
got
typing notes.
notes on his phone. And he's like, they go through this whole production of him basically leading her through all of this, to
all the
get
answers.
all the answers she needs, all of the way that she needs to, the inflections in her voice, and get angry, get bigger, get mad.
Yeah. It's a
And
great
finally
scene.
they
Their
set it
chemistry is
all
really
up.
cute here. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a really
it's the best scene in the movie.
yeah.
Glen Powell has very good chemistry with his co-star.
Yeah.
Um,
But like we know he's charismatic, but she is the way she's playing it up is really cute.
Yeah.
How she's like, I didn't do it. I didn't have anything to do with it. And like the way that she like shoves him away and like she's like putting on a theater production herself. I really liked it,
right.
yeah.
I do like that when he leaves, he's like, God, that was
And that
intense."
wink at the end.
Yes.
So let's
the-
never
the-
see each other again. I don't want to ever cross paths. And he's like, fine, and then winks at her and leaves.
Right.
Yeah.
So they clear Madison of the
Yeah.
murder.
The other cops in the van are like, yeah, she didn't do it. And they go, Jasper, what you reading? You don't know what he's going to say, but he's like, yep, I guess you're good. And I thought he was just kind of being cool. Like, all right, this guy's good. You know, he beat me. He won.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. He goes back to her apartment.
I keep calling him Glen Powell, but
Gary.
Gary goes back to the apartment, and who's sitting in the apartment but Jasper? And he was like, look, man. And of course, as a dirty cop, he's like, I don't care. You do you got away with it, but you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
And as he's going through Jasper is going through his plan, he starts to like lose his balance. And I was like, oh, what is happening right now? And she says, Jasper collapses on the floor. And the way Glen Powell plays this is like, what are like just the look on his face. He does not move from his spot on the couch.
I was thinking this would be a flip.
Happening?
I was thinking that Gary was finally going to do something, but
he does.
you know, because she's already killed someone, right? And I was like, oh, now he's going to break bad, and they're going to be. But it's funny that where she's like, oh no, I put a lot of drugs.
I put
in his
drugs,
drink.
and she's like, but now he's like, we have to do something. Like I've drugged a cop, and he was like,
she's like, we're screwed. There's nothing we can do.
And Glen Powell walks over, grabs like a Schnucks, a plastic bag, a Schnucks bag. That's a
Dearborn's
very local,
bag, actually.
very local reference. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And he was just like, "Commitment." And he puts the bag over the cop's head because he can't move, so he's just going to suffocate himself, basically.
This very much reminded me of something like True Romance. It's the comedy, but it's a romance, right? Because, you know, they're like killing people, and then Patricia Arquette thinks it's romantic. And this was very much that dark comedy type of, and, you know, Linklater comes out of when Tarantino was big. And I just think that these are the kind of movies and writing that are his strong suit, these quirky comedies, dark comedies, and
yes.
I like this how he just, without saying anything, starts doing this. And you're right, that this is commitment. And
yeah and he dies. They kill Jasper. They put him in his car. They make it look like he overdosed on drugs, and then they go about their lives. And the line that I think is very interesting, he's like, I found a really good balance between Ron and Gary. So he's taken like aspects of both of those personalities and combined them, which again to me means this still isn't the real person.
Well, I think that it's the confidence.
There's
a
scene with the ex-girlfriend where they talk about, well, if you behave a certain way long enough, then that is who you are, right?
Because I guess she's a psychologist or something, right? So they're both very intellectual, and you're right, because I mean, people grow, people change their personalities and demeanors. So like, you can say, oh yeah, well, he's pretending to be Ron, but like, at what point does a person pretend to be something and then become it, right? Because yeah, you're not pretending anymore if that is your personality now.
Right.
So I think he takes the confidence of Ron. You know, I believe that we're all led to believe he doesn't keep killing people or anything. It's like, that was a one-time thing. They both put it behind themselves, and now they've got this cute little family.
Yeah, we jump forward a few years, and they're married, and they've got this daughter and
got two kids, right?
Oh, I don't know. I saw that.
They have a little boy too, but the daughter is old enough to say, "Where did you meet Daddy?"
Yeah,
that's funny.
And
they look at each other.
They throw back to the line that lets you know that he's a hitman. There's no such thing as bad pie, which he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And that's how this one ends. I do think I need a second. I enjoyed it a lot, but I do think I want to watch it again, just to like get my feelings for sure on it. But I enjoyed everything. I do kind of wish it was in theaters, but it is what that's.
It was for a little bit.
Oh
yeah, it got a small theatrical release.
Yeah, the way they did.
But yeah, I thought this was solid.
Yeah, like I didn't hate it. I was conflicted because there were things I liked, but again, like I wish it would have been just more dark comedy, less rom-com. But overall, like it was way better than I thought it was going to be, and not what I thought it was going to be, which was nice.
Yeah, I
very
think
much so.
The fact that we've gotten a lot of dark comedies and we've gotten a lot of rom-coms, and I like that they kind of mix the genres in a different way.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it could have been a really funny, just more dark comedy. But then again,
I think even if it had just been filmed differently, like if it hadn't looked like a rom-com,
you know what I did? The only thing I didn't like, and it didn't ruin the movie for me at all, but when they did the mug shots of each person he put away, there was a real weird, cheap look to the mugshots that looked like not film, but it looked like I don't know, not even like a phone
AI
camera, but like
digital trying to look like film.
Digital. It just was like a really cheap looking thing, and I don't know why he filmed the mugshots in this bright, no film grain to it. It was just a very digital way. And
Yeah.
Linklater is a talented director. He knows what he's doing. I'm sure he has his reasons, but it took me out of it because
I
it looked
didn't know
like,
this was Linklater going in. So when I saw it at the end, I was like, oh, like that caught me off guard.
yeah,
Yeah.
this
So,
is fun.
But yeah, if you got Netflix, it's sitting over there. It's definitely, I think, worth, you already paid your $20 for the
Yeah.
month.
I think
Check it
this
out.
is one of the
Absolutely
better
watch it.
Netflix originals.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would agree.
I'm not a fan of like I didn't mention on the last one, but like Seven Underground or whatever.
terrible.
Yeah.
That
And it
movie's
just
terrible.
I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. They do put out hits every once in a while, and
Yeah.
I think this is a good one.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21, and on Letterboxd at the same.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And this is Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. And of course, don't forget our Patreon. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Kincaid kicks Dukovic off the roof.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we all